Rift. So today we're back with a patch 3.0 B review. And now I know I'm really late on this one, and the reason for that is that I just got a new job. I was at work, so uh basically I couldn't actually cover this, and I just got home and now I can finally cover it. And I didn't really get to really study in depth what has happened in the patch and really gather my thoughts. So this time we'll just kind of be going a little bit more free flow and going through the patch together. So anyways, we're gonna just quickly jump into it. In terms of the champion changes, as you can see, only like 4 champions are affected, but there are a ton of rune changes. So first up, we got 2 new skins already released at the time of recording, 2 new accessories. We have this like flower bauble, which will probably be for this event, the Join the Fluffed Ionia event. So there's an Ionia theme now, like in the guild, so probably they want to tie into that. And we all know that Join the Fluffed are those like 3-4 day kind of events where you pretty much just complete the event just by playing the game. Quests like, kill dragons, kill minions, that kind of thing, like super duper easy to do, and you don't have to go out of your way to do it. So just need to play the game. It's normally that kind of short event. And next thing is Wild Rift Season 5. So this leads me to believe that the current season of Wild Rift, of Ranked I mean, is ending. The season did start in December, so it's been 4 months now, because it started on 5th of December. So the December, January, February, and March. So it has already been 4 months, and generally the seasons last around that kind of time. So I do think that this season is going to be ending soon, although on the official season page it still says it's to be decided, so we don't know for sure on that one. So with that out of the way, we're going to jump into the 4 champion changes. So here, first up, we have Fizz. So Fizz basically is getting a nerf. So as you guys can see, his Playful Trickster damage is going down by 10 at all ranks, and his ult base damage going down by 50 at all ranks. So personally, did I think Fizz was extremely obnoxious? I don't really think so. I didn't think he was even that popular of a pick, because generally people would rather pick Zed than Fizz if they want a mid lane assassin. Now of course Zed is AD and Fizz is AP, but generally most people still think that Zed is better, and not too many people play Fizz in the jungle either. So I don't see Fizz picked a whole lot anyways, and I think he's actually in an alright spot after they nerfed the cooldown on his ult, which came up way too often for a long time. So now he's getting like a 10 damage nerf on his E and a 50 damage nerf on his ult. Now of course, as an AD carry main, I like that. I don't like to get assassinated by Fizzes, but I think he was already in an okay spot, so this might make him a little bit weak in my opinion. Now Jax is in a very strong spot in the top lane, and especially in the jungle. We recently made a Jax complete guide for Jax jungle, so check it out if you have not yet done so. But they are reducing his attack speed gain per stack on his passive by 0.5 at the first rank, and when you reach the max rank, which will be at level 13, it goes down from 10.5 to 8.5. So that's 2% attack speed per stack, and considering you have 10 stacks, that's 20% attack speed, so that is very sizable. 20% attack speed is nothing to scoff at, so this will definitely bring down Jax's power levels. And we all know Jax is a stat stick, so if he gets less stacks, it might kick him out of the meta completely, or at least will significantly weaken him. So we have to see how Jax is affected, particularly in the jungle where he's really strong now. And Lulu catching a nerf as well. So the cooldown on her Whimsy is going up by 1 second at all ranks. Now honestly, I don't think this will affect too much. 1 second generally isn't really going to change too much. But her shield value on her help picks, the value is going up actually on the first rank, but at max rank it's going down by 25. So basically making it a little bit stronger in the early game, but making it a lot weaker when you max it out. And most Lulus max their E first, so they basically are going to get a little bit less shield value. Now Lulu is one of the best supports at the moment, together with like Nami for example, so I do think that this nerf is warranted, and I think that it's a relatively small nerf but will have an impact, so I like what they did with Lulu. Now here we get onto the big one. So Riot and Step, which is Nick, who is this guy here, who of course is in the balance team, actually did a podcast where he actually discussed on his Twitch that Yumi was purposely released weak. Now, personally, did I think she was weak? I think her Q was absolutely weak, and I think her Q wasn't even worth using. Firstly, because it's very hard to steer. Secondly, because even if you hit it, it didn't, like, basically nothing. But I still thought she was strong because of her buffs on her E. Now, thankfully, her E did not get buffed in any way, but she basically got buffed all across the board everywhere. So, her mana regen going up by 0.4. Her growth, that is, so that's like every level. Now, Yumi has a ton of mana problems, even when you proc her passive. So, this will help her mana problems a lot. And her passive cooldown is going down by 2 seconds at the first rank and 0.5 seconds at max rank. So this will help a lot with her mana in the laning phase especially, which is, as I mentioned, a problem. So this will make her proc passive a lot more often, which gives her not only mana but the shield for her ally as well. So the Prowling Projectile mana cost going down by 20, which again helps her mana problems. The percent health damage is going up at higher ranks by 2%. Now, the reason why they didn't really adjust the lower ranks too much is because they want people to max her Q second instead of maxing her W, which is what most people do now. So I do get where they're coming from with that one, and this might be an attractive option to max second after these buffs. So the base damage and the empowered damage going up by 20 at all ranks. So this will hopefully make it actually do damage. Now, 20 damage, not very notable, but of course Yumi does build support items which give her AP, so this probably should scale pretty well. Speaking of AP, the attached adaptive force ratio AD to AP, the AP ratio is going up from 1.67 to 2, so I guess if I understand this correctly, means that when she attaches to AP champions, for example like a Diana, the Diana should get more AP from the Yumi W passive. And her final chapter, which is her ultimate, is the damage is going up by 20 at all ranks as well. So 20 damage increase on here and on here as well. Mana regen increase and passive cooldown decrease. Pretty much Yumi is getting buffed all across the board everywhere. So I already thought Yumi was very strong. Now I know that that's not a sentiment that everybody shares, because most people rate Yumi like in A tier, for example, but I think she's S+, and those people will probably think she's S+ now as well. So Yumi is probably gonna be really strong. She was already, I wouldn't say she's getting perma banned, but I think she's getting banned like 1 in every 2 games, and now she probably is gonna get permanently banned, or at least 100% presence, like picked or banned every game, I believe. Now, they're reducing the cost of Maw by 200, basically because people aren't really building it right now. Now I really don't see people building it, and I don't really think a 200 cost decrease is going to get more people to build it, because there generally are better options in the game. Take note that the Hex Drinker cost was not adjusted, so some Baron Leaders like to rush Hex Drinker if they're against an AP matchup like a Kennen, but this isn't going to help that cause. So here we got a bunch of rune changes. So here I have glanced through these, and I do have some, I do have a little bit of thoughts on these. So first up, we're going to cover Keystone Electrocute. So Electrocute base damage is going up by 5, and of course scaling all the way up to an extra 5 damage as well. Cooldown going down by 5 seconds. Now I will say the damage increase I think is not really meaningful, because it's only 5 damage at all so-called quote-unquote ranks. So I don't really think that 5 damage is going to matter at all. But the cooldown is probably a little bit more attractive, where instead of 25-second cooldown, you get a 20-second cooldown. So Electrocute is generally a laning phase kind of rune, where it doesn't really help you too much in the late game, because it doesn't really scale too well. But in lane, it can help you do a lot of damage and harass your lane opponent. So Electrocute has always been a lane-centric rune. But overall, I think the real issue is that most people who can take Electrocute can take Conqueror as well. So I really think the issue with that is that Conqueror is just too good. Now I know they've nerfed Conqueror before a couple of patches ago, but it still is clearly the best rune by a mile. So I think they need to probably nerf Conqueror a bit more for people to start considering taking other runes. Like so many people, like for example like a Rengar or a Kha'Zix, or Rihanna would rather take Conqueror than even consider Electrocute at this point in time. And I really don't think this is really going to change too much in my opinion. Now, I'm going to skip these for now. I'm going to discuss Phase Rush, which is the same thing because it's a Keystone rune. So it's competing with Conqueror, and the buff it got is its cooldown is going down from 15 seconds to 12 seconds. Now, Phase Rush doesn't even give any combat stats whatsoever. It gives you movement speed, which, don't get me wrong, is a very important stat, but it's competing with Conqueror. So I really don't think this buff is going to do anything to Phase Rush. Now, we're going to take a look at Domination Triumph, where the bonus damage to enemies below 35% health is going up from 3 to 5%. So now this is an interesting one because it's competing with other runes like Brutal, which is not... It depends on your view on Brutal. Some people think it's not very good, some people love it because it doesn't scale at all and it's like flat damage, whereas something like a Hunter Vampirism or a Gathering Storm will scale. Something like a Domination Triumph will scale as well because as you get more damage, you know, you still do more damage to people, 5% more damage to people when they're below 35% health. So honestly, I feel that the change to Triumph might actually make a difference. Especially now when the Domination rune between like Brutal, Hunter, Vampirism, you know, Champion, and you know, now Triumph, you know, is pretty competitive. So this might make more people take Triumph. We'll have to see how it changes the meta. Now, on Hunter Genius, the starting ability haste you get is going up from 2.5 to 3, nearly negligible, and the maximum ability haste you can get from is 15 to 18. Now 3 ability haste is really almost nothing, and it's competing with other a lot more useful runes there, like for example Sweet Tooth. Now Sweet Tooth, you will see that it's gonna get a nerf right here, but I still think Sweet Tooth is going to be kind of the rune to go for because there's no potions in Wild Rift, and to get lane sustain, you're gonna have to use Sweet Tooth for that. So it's competing with Sweet Tooth, which is pretty much an issue in my opinion. So here we got the nerf to Sweet Tooth, where the Honey Fruit healing is going down from 25% to 20%, and the gold you get is going down from 20 to 15. Now Honey Fruit has never really Honey Fruit rune, or a Sweet Tooth rune, not Honey Fruit rune. Sweet Tooth rune has never actually really been about the gold. It's more about the healing and the mana. So getting hit by 5% does sort of hurt the rune a little bit, but still I think people will be taking Sweet Tooth just for that sustain in lane. And the gold, 5 gold, that's a total of like 15 gold that you lost. Now, is it negligible? It is not, but 15 gold is like less than a minion, so it probably isn't going to matter too much. I still think Sweet Tooth is going to be really strong. Now, something really interesting is that N-Step in his Twitch stream did actually mention that Sweet Tooth is not actually as strong as people think, which I can definitely believe because, I mean, over there we have other things like Hunter Genius, which I could see how getting an extra 18 ability haste total, not 15 to 18, but 18 ability haste total. Or let's not talk about the 18, let's talk about 15 before this buff. 15 extra ability haste total, I could see how that could make a difference, or maybe like a Mastermind makes a difference in getting objectives, or maybe like, the water walking for jungle rotations could make the difference. I could see that happening, but for laners, I really still think Sweet Tooth is kind of the way to go. So now we're going to discuss the 4 actually resolve rune changes. So conditioning, you're going to start getting the bonus resistances from 3 minutes because Wild Rift is a faster paced game. Whereas your starting bonus armor and MR is going down from 8 to 5. So that's to compensate for starting to scale earlier. So you start off with 3 less, but you're going to start getting faster. Overall, it's good because you scale faster. But it's competing with Hunter, Titan, Bone Playing, etc. So I really don't think this is gonna affect too much. Speaking of which, Hunter Titan is getting a nerf because it's too strong, which I agree it is. I may not agree it's too strong, but I agree it's pretty much the best rune that you can get. I actually kind of accidentally skipped Bone Playing, but we're gonna go back to that. So tenacity gain per unique champion takedown going down from 4 to 3%. Therefore, your max stacks, you're going to get 15% instead of 20%. Now, 5% is going to make a difference, but I still think in matchups, like for example, against heavy CC, like, Twisted Fate, or just against a heavy CC team, I still think Hunter Titan is going to be very good. And even just as a rune in general, I still think Hunter Titan probably is one of the 2 best resolve runes. The other one being Bone Plating, which actually got a buff. So it's cooldown going down from 45 to 35 seconds, and I think this was a long time coming. So Bone Plating while it is generally relatively popular, it is very weak because it's very easy to play around in the laning phase, which I mentioned a ton of times before. Because it's very easy to just proc your opponent's bone plating, disengage, and then go in on them when in that 45 seconds where their bone plating is down. So I think that this this buff was really needed for a long time. So yeah, so that will make bone plating a lot more viable, and it is already pretty viable now, even with the 45-second cooldown, mostly as a late game rune to protect yourself from burst more than a laning phase rune, which is what it sort of was intended to be. So lastly, we have Second Wind, where your regeneration time after taking champion damage is actually getting cut in half from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. So this actually really could help laning phase, particularly for barrel lanes, and I honestly actually can see Second Wind being competitive because 5 seconds regeneration time after taking champion damage looks really good on paper. So this could shake things up. I think out of all the rune changes, the most big changes are Second Wind as well as the Triumph, which I think could actually possibly shake up, you know, what rune you choose in that spot. But the rest I really think don't really matter too much. Like, they do matter because after all, they are buffs and nerfs, but in terms of picking what rune to take in that slot, I don't think it's gonna affect too much in terms of picking what rune is gonna take. Of course, when you do pick that rune, for example, when I pick Hunter Titan, it is gonna be a nerfed version of the rune. So with all that out of the way, we've reached actually the end of patch 3.0b. So something to note is that this patch is gonna last 3 weeks because patch 3.1 is coming on March 24th. So with all that out of the way, thank you guys for watching the video, and goodbye.